Imagine stepping out into a world where every voice you've ever known is gone. No cities, no crowds, no laughter, just silence, stretching across the entire earth. After the Great Flood, when the Ark finally opened, Noah didn't just walk into a new beginning. He walked into a world that had been completely erased. Everything he had ever known, every place, every face, gone beneath the waters. And now, with only 7 others beside him, the future of humanity rested on his shoulders. But what Noah did next would shape the world forever. This is the story of the world Noah found beyond the Ark.
For many months, Noah had known only the sound of water, water crashing against the ark, water falling from the heavens, water moving beneath him like a restless sea. Inside the great wooden vessel, life continued in darkness and waiting. The animals breathed, stirred, cried, and slept. Noah's family moved carefully through the ark, feeding creatures, cleaning stalls, comforting one another, and listening for any sign that the storm was truly over. Then one day, the rain stopped. But silence did not come immediately. The waters still covered the earth. The ark still drifted across a world Noah could no longer recognize. The cities were gone. The fields were gone. The roads were gone. The voices of the old world were gone. Everything Noah had once known lay buried beneath the flood. The Bible says,
"And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days."
Genesis 7:24. For 150 days the waters ruled the earth. But God had not forgotten Noah.
"And God remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark."
Genesis 8:1. God remembered, not because he had ever forgotten, but because the time of mercy had come again. A wind passed over the earth. The waters began to go down. The ark, which had floated through judgment, came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat. Still, Noah waited. He did not rush ahead of God. He opened the window of the ark and sent out a raven. The raven flew back and forth over the waters. Then Noah sent out a dove, but the dove found no place to rest and returned to him. Noah waited 7 more days. Then he sent the dove again. This time the dove returned with an olive leaf in her mouth. A small leaf, a tiny sign. But to Noah it must have looked like hope itself. Life was returning. The earth was breathing again. The judgment had passed. At last God spoke to Noah.
"Go forth of the ark, thou, and thy wife, and thy sons, and thy sons' wives with thee."
Genesis 8:16. The same God who had shut Noah in now called him out. Noah stood before the door of the ark. Perhaps his hand rested on the wood for a moment. This ark had been his shelter, his prison, his sanctuary, and his lifeline. It had carried him through the death of one world and brought him to the edge of another. Then the door opened. Light poured in. Fresh air entered the ark. For the first time in many months, Noah looked out upon the earth. But it was not the earth he remembered. There were no crowded streets, no market voices, no smoke rising from village fires, no laughter from neighbors, no workers in the fields, no children running through dusty paths. Only silence, a deep, holy silence. The ground was wet beneath his feet. The air smelled of rain, mud, wood, and beginning. The mountains stood around him like witnesses. The sky stretched wide and clean above him. Noah stepped out slowly. His wife followed, then Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Then their wives. 8 people stood in a washed world, 8 souls. The entire future of humanity standing quietly beneath the open sky. Behind them, the ark rested on the mountain. Before them, the earth waited. Imagine that. Noah looked around, and his heart must have been full of many feelings. Relief, because he had survived; gratitude, because God had kept his promise; sorrow, because the world he had known was gone. The flood had washed away violence and corruption, but it had also washed away memories. The places where Noah had walked were no more. The homes he had passed were gone. The people who had mocked him were silent forever. The world after the flood was peaceful, but it was also lonely. Sometimes new beginnings come with joy and grief at the same time. Noah had been saved, but salvation had carried him through loss. He had obeyed God, but obedience had not protected him from sadness. He had entered the ark with faith, and now he stepped out into a future that had no map. What do you do when everything familiar is gone? What do you build first when you must begin again? Noah knew. He did not first build a house. He did not first plant a field. He did not first count the animals. He built an altar. The Bible says,
"And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord."
Genesis 8:20. This was Noah's first act in the new world, worship. Before there was a city, there was an altar. Before there was a home, there was gratitude. Before Noah tried to rebuild life, he honored the God who had preserved life. Stone by stone, Noah built the altar. Perhaps his sons helped him gather rocks from the wet earth. Perhaps his wife and daughters-in-law stood nearby, watching with quiet tears. The animals moved across the land, released into the world again by God's command. Noah brought an offering to the Lord. Smoke rose into the clean air. For a moment, the silence of the earth was filled with worship, and God received it. The Bible says,
"And the Lord smelled a sweet savor."
Genesis 8:21. God saw Noah's worship. He saw the altar. He saw the heart of a man who had survived judgment and still chose reverence. Then God made a promise in his heart. He would never again curse the ground in the same way because of mankind. The seasons would continue. Seed time and harvest would remain. Cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night would not cease. The world had changed, but God's faithfulness had not. Then God blessed Noah and his sons.
"Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth."
Genesis 9:1. This was more than a command. It was an invitation to begin again. The earth was empty, but it was not abandoned. The ground was wounded, but it was not hopeless. Humanity had fallen, but God was still giving life. Noah and his family were called to fill the earth, care for creation, and live under the authority of God. Every child born after the flood would carry a reminder that mercy had triumphed over judgment. But Noah also knew something serious. The flood had washed the earth, but it had not removed the weakness of the human heart. The old world had been destroyed, but sin still had to be resisted. A new world does not automatically create a new heart. That is why Noah's altar mattered. The new beginning had to start with God. Then God gave Noah a sign. Clouds gathered in the sky. Perhaps Noah's family became afraid. After everything they had survived, dark clouds may have brought back memories of thunder, rising waters, and the terrible sound of judgment. But this time the clouds did not bring destruction. This time they carried a promise. Across the sky, light broke through moisture and formed colors unlike anything Noah had seen before. A rainbow stretched from one side of the heavens to the other. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. A bow in the clouds. God said,
"I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth."
Genesis 9:13. The rainbow was not just beauty. It was a message. Every time clouds gathered, Noah would remember, God keeps his covenant. Every time rain fell, his children would remember. Judgment had come, but mercy remained. The rainbow stood between memory and hope. It reminded Noah of the world that had been lost, but also of the God who had carried him into a new one. The story after the flood teaches us that survival is not the end of the journey. Sometimes God brings us through the storm, then asks us to build again. Sometimes the hardest part is not entering the ark, but stepping out into a world that has changed. Noah's first act after deliverance was worship. That shows us something powerful. When God brings you through, do not forget to build an altar. When the storm ends, do not forget who carried you. When life begins again, begin with God. The flood ended one world, but God's mercy began another. Noah stepped out of the ark not as a man who had escaped by luck, but as a man preserved by grace. The ground beneath him was wet. The future before him was unknown. The memories behind him were painful, but above him was a rainbow, and beyond the ark was a promise.